Saturday, July 11th, 2026. Today's World News Headline Summary. 1. CNN. 1-1. Israel warns U.S. of Iranian plot to assassinate Trump. Israeli intelligence has warned the United States regarding a specific Iranian plot to assassinate President Donald Trump, exacerbating an already volatile geopolitical landscape. This alarming intelligence emerges amidst a fragile ceasefire and escalating tit-for-tat military strikes between the U.S. and Iran in the Middle East. Following the tip-off, stringent security protocols were swiftly implemented by the Secret Service. Consequently, President Trump altered his travel arrangements, opting to fly back from the NATO summit on an older Air Force One instead of his newly acquired aircraft. While diplomatic channels remain open behind the scenes, the heightened security posture underscores the precarious nature of current U.S.-Iran relations. They want to take out the U.S. leader, me, Trump explicitly stated to reporters, confirming his awareness of the persistent threats. Vocabulary. Assassinate. Verb. 암살하다. The intelligence agency uncovered a plot to assassinate the leader. Exacerbate. Verb. 악화시키다. His harsh words only exacerbated the tense diplomatic situation. Volatile. Adjective. 변동성이 큰, 불안정한. The political situation in the region remains highly volatile. Tit for tat. Adjective. Noun. 보복에, 안갚음. The two nations engaged in a dangerous tit-for-tat trade war. Tip-off. Noun. 제보, 힌트. Following a tip-off, the police implemented strict security protocols. Stringent. Adjective. 엄격한. Stringent security measures were put in place at the airport. Opt. Verb. 선택하다. Many employees opted to work from home during the storm. Posture. Noun. 태세, 자세. The military maintained a defensive posture along the border. Precarious. Adjective. 위태로운, 불안정한. The company is in a precarious financial position right now. Persistent. Adjective. 끈질긴, 끊임없는. Persistent efforts are required to solve this complex issue. 시사용어 해설. Air Force One. 미국 대통령이 탑승하는 공군 항공기의 공식 호출부호, 콜사인입니다. 통상적으로 대통령 전용기를 지칭하며 세계 최고 수준의 통신 및 미사일 방어 시스템을 갖추고 있어 하늘의 백악관으로 불립니다. Tit for tat. 보복 전략. 상대방이 자신에게 한 행동, 특히 부정적인 행동을 그대로 갚아주는 전략을 의미합니다. 외교나 무역에서 눈에는 눈, 이에는 이 식의 보복 조치를 설명할 때 자주 쓰입니다.
U.S. forces conduct 170 strikes on Iran amid naval tensions. The United States military has executed approximately 170 targeted strikes against Iranian military assets over 2 consecutive nights. Fighter jets deployed from the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group in the Arabian Sea conducted intensive nighttime missions to neutralize threats. The primary objective is to degrade Iran's capability to disrupt international shipping through the strategic Strait of Hormuz by destroying air defense systems and drone storage sites. Despite the heavy bombardment, U.S. officials maintain that diplomacy is still taking the lead behind the scenes to ease tensions. However, the captain of the USS Abraham Lincoln noted that things are heating up as crews arm fighter jets in preparation for potential further strikes. The delicate balance between military deterrence and diplomatic negotiation remains highly uncertain. Vocabulary. Execute. Verb. 실행하다, 처형하다. The military executed a well-planned nighttime operation. Consecutive. Adjective. 연속적인. It has rained for 5 consecutive days. Neutralize. Verb. 무력화하다, 중화시키다. The troops were sent to neutralize the enemy threat. Degrade. Verb. 저하시키다, 무력화하다. The strikes were intended to degrade the enemy's air defense. Disrupt. Verb. 방해하다, 지장을 주다. The bad weather disrupted the shipping schedule. Strategic. Adjective. 전략적인. The island is of great strategic importance to the Navy. Bombardment. Noun. 폭격, 포격. The city suffered a heavy bombardment during the war. Deterrence. Noun. 억제, 제지. Nuclear weapons act as a deterrence against major conflicts. Delicate. Adjective. 미묘한, 섬세한. The negotiations require a delicate balance of power. Uncertain. Adjective. 불확실한. The economic outlook for the next quarter remains uncertain. 시사용어 해설. Strait of Hormuz, 호르무즈 해협. 페르시아만과 오만만을 잇는 좁은 해협으로 전 세계 해상 원유 수송량의 약 20%가 통과하는 글로벌 경제의 핵심 동맥입니다. 이곳이 봉쇄되면 전 세계 석유 가격이 급등하게 됩니다. Carrier Strike Group, 항모 전단. 항공모함을 중심으로 구축함, 순양함, 잠수함 등 여러 호위 함정들이 하나의 묶음으로 작전을 수행하는 해군의 핵심 전투 부대입니다. 13-3. Surveillance video shows moments before deadly ice shooting in Texas. New surveillance footage has emerged showing the critical moments before an immigration and customs enforcement agent fatally shot a Mexican immigrant during a traffic stop in Houston, Texas. The victim, 52-year-old Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, was simply driving his white van to his construction job when the fatal encounter occurred. Tragically, a Department of Homeland Security spokesperson later confirmed that Araujo was not the actual target of the ICE operation. Agents were searching for different individuals from Guatemala. The release of this footage has sparked widespread public outrage and intense scrutiny over the agency's operational protocols. Civil rights organizations are vehemently demanding an independent, transparent investigation into the excessive use of force that led to the death of an innocent man. Vocabulary. Surveillance. Noun. 감시, CCTV. The police reviewed the surveillance footage to identify the suspect. Fatally. Adverb. 치명적으로. The driver was fatally injured in the car accident. Encounter. Noun. Verb. 만남, 조, 마주치다. His brief encounter with the famous author changed his life. Tragically. Adverb. 비극적으로. Tragically, the rescue team arrived too late to save the passengers. Spark. Verb. 촉발시키다. 유발하다. The controversial law sparked widespread protests across the country. Outrage. Noun. 공분, 분노. The corruption scandal caused public outrage. Scrutiny. Noun. 정밀조사. 철저한 검토. The company's financial records are under intense scrutiny. Vehemently. Adverb. 맹렬히, 격렬하게. She vehemently denied the accusations made against her. Transparent. Adjective. 투명한, 명백한. The government promised a transparent investigation into the matter. Excessive. Adjective. 과도한, 지나친. Excessive use of force by the police is strictly prohibited. 시사용어 해설. ICE. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. 이민세관 집행국. 미국 국토안보부 산하의 연방 법집행기관으로 불법 이민자 단속, 국경 보안, 밀수 방지 등의 업무를 담당합니다. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, 국토안보부. 9.11 테러 이후 테러 방지와 국경 보안, 재난 대응 등을 총괄하기 위해 설립된 미국의 거대 연방정부 부처입니다. BBC 2-1. Ukraine's military intensifies attacks near Russian-annexed Crimea. Ukraine's armed forces have significantly intensified their offensive operations near the Russian-annexed Crimean Peninsula. A coordinated military campaign utilizing advanced unmanned systems has specifically targeted Russian logistics and naval assets. Ukrainian drone force commander Robert Brovdy reported that at least 25 Russian ships, including vital gasoline tankers, have been struck and set ablaze in the Sea of Azov over the past 4 days. This aggressive push is strategically designed to systematically dismantle Russian supply lines and isolate military outposts in the occupied territories.
Despite these heavy losses and domestic pressure, Russian President Vladimir Putin has firmly rejected calls to negotiate peace based on current front lines, opting instead to escalate the conflict. Vocabulary. Intensify. Verb. 강화하다, 심해지다. The military decided to intensify its airstrikes on enemy camps. Annex. Verb. 국가, 지역을 무력으로 병합하다. The empire annexed the neighboring territory after a brief war. Coordinate. Verb. 조직화하다, 조정하다. The rescue teams coordinated their efforts to save the victims.
Unmanned. Adjective. 무인해. Unmanned aerial vehicles have fundamentally changed modern warfare. Logistics. Noun. 병참, 물류. Good logistics are essential for supplying troops on the front line. Ablaze. Adjective. 불길에 휩싸인. The building was set ablaze during the violent protests. Dismantle. Verb. 해체하다, 무너뜨리다. The police are working to dismantle the organized crime network. Isolate. Verb. 고립시키다. The heavy snowfall effectively isolated the mountain village. Outpost. Noun. 전초기지. Soldiers were stationed at a remote military outpost in the desert. Escalate. Verb. 확대시키다, 악화되다. The minor argument quickly escalated into a physical fight. 시사용어 해설. Logistics. 병참, 물류. 군사용어로는 군대의 이동, 숙박, 무기 및 식량 공급 등 전투를 지원하는 모든 물리적 지원 체계를 의미합니다. 현대전에서는 병참선, supply line의 유지 여부가 승패를 가르는 핵심 요소입니다. Annexation. 병합. 한 국가가 타국의 영토를 강제적으로 자국의 영토로 편입시키는 행위입니다. 러시아의 2014년 크림반도 병합이 대표적입니다. 2.2. ICC has concrete evidence linking RSF leaders to Darfur war crimes. The International Criminal Court, ICC, announced that it has obtained concrete evidence linking top leaders of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, paramilitary group, to egregious war crimes in Sudan's Darfur region. ICC Deputy Chief Prosecutor Nazhat Shamin Khan stated in an interview that the gathered intelligence clearly demonstrates systemic violence directed against civilian populations. The harrowing reports include indiscriminate killings, widespread displacement, and the destruction of civilian infrastructure across Darfur. Human rights advocates are amplifying their calls for immediate international intervention to halt the unfolding humanitarian catastrophe. Consequently, the ICC's robust findings pave the way for potential arrest warrants targeting the paramilitary commanders orchestrating this horrific bloodshed. Vocabulary. Concrete. Adjective phrase. 구체적인, 확실한. The police need concrete evidence to make an arrest. Paramilitary. Adjective, noun. 준군사적인, 민경대. The paramilitary group took control of the border town. Egregious. Adjective. 지독한, 터무니없는. The dictator committed egregious human rights violations. Systemic. Adjective. 체계적인, 시스템적인. Systemic discrimination is a deep-rooted problem in many societies. Harrowing. Adjective. 끔찍한, 참혹한. The survivors shared harrowing stories of their perilous escape. Indiscriminate. Adjective. 무차별적인. Indiscriminate bombing of the city resulted in countless civilian deaths. Displacement. Noun. 강제 이주, 난민 발생. The prolonged civil war caused massive displacement of civilians. Intervention. Noun. Cape, 간섭. Timely medical intervention saved the critically ill patient's life. Catastrophe. Noun. 대참사, 재앙. The earthquake was the worst natural catastrophe in the nation's history. Orchestrate. Verb. 복잡한 계획 등을 조직하다, 지휘하다. The rebel leader orchestrated a series of attacks on the capital. ICC. International Criminal Court. 국제형사재판소. 집단 학살, 반인도적 범죄, 전쟁 범죄 등을 저지른 개인을 국제법에 따라 처벌하기 위해 네덜란드 헤이그에 설립된 상설국제재판소입니다. 국가 간의 분쟁을 다루는 국제사법재판소, ICJ와는 다릅니다. 2-3. Russian journalists face foreign agent labels amid war. The Russian government has increasingly weaponized the label of foreign agent to systematically suppress independent journalists following the invasion of Ukraine. At least 7 BBC-affiliated Russian journalists have been branded with this stigmatizing designation, forcing them into exile. This draconian law imposes severe practical consequences, such as frozen bank accounts and the inability to provide financial support to their families back in Russia. Journalist Ilya Abishev noted, "I don't rule out that my family may face problems in Russia as children of an enemy of the state." Furthermore, any failure to meticulously report their expenses or label their social media posts can result in criminal prosecution and lengthy imprisonment. The legislation effectively criminalizes independent journalism and permanently severs these professionals from their homeland. Vocabulary. Weaponize. Verb. 무기화하다. The regime weaponized the legal system against its political opponents. Suppress. Verb. 억압하다. 진압하다. The government used the military to suppress the peaceful protests. Brand. Verb. 낙인을 찍다. The media branded the politician as corrupt and untrustworthy. Stigmatize. Verb. 오명을 씌우다. 낙인 찍다. Mental illness should not be stigmatized in modern society. Exile. Noun. Verb. 망명. 추방. 망명시키다. The writer lived in exile for 20 years to avoid imprisonment. Draconian. Adjective. 법, 조치가 매우 가혹한. The dictator imposed draconian laws to control the population. Rule out. Phrasal verb. 배제하다. The police have not ruled out the possibility of foul play. Meticulously. Adverb. 꼼꼼하게, 세심하게. She meticulously organized all the files in alphabetical order. Prosecution. Noun. 기소, 고발. He is facing criminal prosecution for tax evasion. Sever. Verb. 단절하다, 끊다. The company decided to sever all ties with the controversial supplier. 시사 용어 해설. Foreign agent, 외국 대행자, 외국 대리인. 본래 외국의 정부나 단체를 대신해 활동하는 사람을 뜻하나 러시아에서는 2012년 제정된 법에 따라 서방의 자금 지원을 받거나 정부의 비판적인 시민단체, 언론인 등을 감시하고 통제하기 위해 이 낙인을 찍어 엄격한 제재를 가하고 있습니다. 3. ABC Australia. 3.1. Australian PM hosts Indian PM Modi for third annual Leaders Summit. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi concluded a highly successful diplomatic visit to Melbourne, where he participated in the third Australia-India Annual Leaders Summit alongside Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. The comprehensive bilateral discussions culminated in a series of landmark agreements designed to reinforce the security architecture of the Indo-Pacific region. Furthermore, both leaders prioritized securing resilient critical mineral supply chains and accelerating the technological transition to clean energy. The summit notably underscores the deepening diplomatic and economic ties under the nation's 6-year-old comprehensive strategic partnership. Analysts suggest this robust alliance acts as a vital counterbalance to shifting geopolitical dynamics in the region, particularly concerning maritime security. Vocabulary. Bilateral. 상방해, 양자간에. The two countries signed a bilateral trade agreement last year. Culminate. 최고조에 달하다, 뭐뭐로 끝이 나다. The festival will culminate with a grand fireworks display at midnight. Landmark. 획기적인, landmark, 이정표. The court's decision is a landmark ruling for civil rights equality. Reinforce. 강화하다. The building structure was reinforced with thick steel beams. Architecture. 구조, architecture, 건축. The security architecture of the region needs to be updated urgently. Resilient. 회복력 있는, 탄력 있는. The economy proved to be highly resilient despite the global crisis. Critical. 결정적인, 중대한, 비판적인. Lithium is a critical mineral for manufacturing electric vehicle batteries. Transition. 전환, 이행. The transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy is essential for survival. Counterbalance. 균형추, 균형을 맞추다. The new policy acts as a counterbalance to the rising inflation rate. Dynamics. 역학관계, 원동력. Understanding the geopolitical dynamics is crucial for all foreign diplomats. 시사용어 해설. 핵심 광물. 리튬, 코발트, 히토류 등 첨단 산업, 전기차 배터리, 반도체 등 국가 안보에 필수적이지만 특정 국가, 예를 들어 중국의 의존도가 높아 공급망이 불안정하여 전략적으로 관리되어야 하는 광물 자원을 뜻합니다.
3.2. Global crude oil prices surged amid U.S.-Iran tensions. Global crude oil prices have surged by more than 5% in direct response to the escalating military conflict between the United States and Iran. Market apprehension is primarily driven by fears of sustained logistical disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial geopolitical waterway that facilitates approximately 1/5 of the world's traded oil. The sudden flare-up in hostilities has prompted several energy tankers to reroute, causing immediate supply chain bottlenecks. Despite subsequent reports indicating that peace negotiations might still be salvaged between Washington and Tehran, the sheer unpredictability of the landscape is keeping commodity markets on edge. Economists warn that prolonged energy price spikes could severely dampen the global economic recovery. Vocabulary: surge. Verb, noun. 급등하다, 급증. Housing prices have surged dramatically over the past few months. Apprehension. Noun. 우려, 불안. There is growing apprehension about the future of the global economy. Disruption. Noun. 붕괴, 중단, 차질. The transportation strike caused massive disruption to public transit. Waterway. Noun. 수로. The canal is an important commercial waterway for international trade. Flare-up. Noun. 폭력, 분쟁 등의 갑작스러운 발생. A sudden flare-up of violence forced the borders to close indefinitely. Reroute. Verb. 경로를 변경하다. The commercial flights were rerouted due to the heavy thunderstorm. Bottleneck. Noun. 병목 현상. The narrow bridge is a major bottleneck for daily commuter traffic. Salvage. Verb. 재난 등에서 구조하다, 수습하다. The company is trying to salvage its reputation after the massive scandal. Unpredictability. Noun. 예측 불가능성. The sheer unpredictability of the stock market makes short-term investing risky. Dampen. Verb. 꺾다, 약화시키다. The sudden bad weather didn't dampen their enthusiasm for the camping trip. 중사영어 해설. Crude oil, 원유. 땅속에서 막 뽑아내어 아직 정제되지 않은 자연 상태의 석유를 말합니다. 글로벌 경제에서는 브렌트유, 브렌트, 서부 텍사스산 원유, WTI, 두바이유, 두바이 등이 대표적인 가격 기준이 됩니다.
Number 3. 3. Australia expands defense engagement with India across land, sea, and air domains. Australia is actively expanding its comprehensive defense engagement with India, establishing joint initiatives that span across land, sea, and air domains. The two nations are increasingly conducting sophisticated joint military exercises designed to enhance tactical interoperability and regional readiness. A major component of this deepening relationship is the establishment of secure intelligence-sharing platforms to monitor shifting maritime activities in the Indo-Pacific. Australian officials emphasize that this is not merely a traditional military alliance. It is evolving into a multi-dimensional partnership that also encompasses cooperation in space exploration, technological innovation, and energy security. Together, they aim to safeguard a rules-based international order against emerging geopolitical threats. Vocabulary. Engagement. Noun. 참여, 교전, 약혼. The government is seeking greater engagement with neighboring countries. Span. Verb/noun. 걸치다, 포괄하다, 기간. His successful career as an actor spanned over 5 decades. Domain. Noun. 영역, 분야. The tech giant is expanding its reach into the healthcare domain. Sophisticated. Adjective. 정교한, 고도화된. The thieves used a highly sophisticated alarm bypass system. Interoperability. Noun. 상호 운용성. The new software improves the interoperability between different operating systems. Readiness. Noun. 준비 상태, 대비 태세. The military raised its level of readiness due to the border conflict. Encompass. Verb. 포함하다, 아우르다. The festival encompasses a wide range of musical genres and performances.
multidimensional, adjective, 다차원적인. Complex global issues require a multidimensional approach to solve. Safeguard, verb/noun, 보호하다, 보호장치. We must take action to safeguard our personal data from hackers. Emerging, adjective, 신흥이, 떠오르는. The fund invests heavily in emerging markets in Southeast Asia. 시사용어 해설. Interoperability, 상호 운용성. 서로 다른 국가의 군대나 무기 시스템이 정보나 통신을 원활하게 주고받으며 마치 하나의 조직처럼 효율적으로 합동작전을 수행할 수 있는 능력을 말합니다.
4. The Korea Times. 4-1. Supreme Court upholds 7-year prison term for ex-President Yoon. South Korea's Supreme Court has decisively upheld a 7-year prison sentence for former President Yoon Suk-yeol on charges including severe obstruction of justice. The highest court confirmed that Yoon illicitly ordered presidential bodyguards to physically prevent state investigators from executing a detention warrant following his short-lived, controversial martial law declaration in late 2024. The presiding judge explicitly stated that the lower court's ruling contained no legal misinterpretations and was entirely justified by the presented evidence. This landmark ruling marks the very first final verdict among 8 ongoing criminal trials connected to the martial law fiasco. Meanwhile, the most severe charge of leading an insurrection, which previously resulted in a life sentence, continues to be fiercely contested in an appellate court. Vocabulary. Uphold. Verb. 판결 등을 유지하다, 확정하다. The Supreme Court upheld the previous court's controversial decision. Obstruction. Noun. 방해, 차단. The executive was charged with obstruction of justice for hiding evidence. Illicitly. Adverb. 불법적으로. Millions of dollars were illicitly transferred to an offshore bank account. Execute. Verb. 집행하다, 실행하다. The police officers arrived at the suspect's house to execute the search warrant. Martial law. Noun. 계엄령. The president declared martial law to quickly restore order in the capital. Presiding judge. Noun. 재판장. The presiding judge asked the jury to carefully deliberate and reach a verdict. Fiasco. Noun. 대실패, 낭패. The poorly planned event turned into a complete public relations fiasco. Insurrection. Noun. 내란, 반란. The military quelled the armed insurrection within just a few hours. Fiercely. Adverb. 치열하게, 맹렬히. The new tax policy is being fiercely debated in the national parliament. Appellate court. Noun. 항소심 법원. The defendant plans to take his losing case to the appellate court. 시사용어 해설. Obstruction of justice. 사법방해죄. 경찰이나 검찰의 정당한 수사 혹은 법원의 재판 과정을 거짓 진술, 증거인멸, 물리력 행사 등으로 방해하는 범죄를 의미합니다. 미국 등 여러 국가에서 매우 무겁게 처벌하는 범죄입니다. 4-2. Heavy downpours cause flooding and damage nationwide. Torrential monsoon rains have aggressively battered South Korea, triggering widespread flooding and substantial infrastructural damage nationwide. Local authorities report that at least one individual remains missing, while over 450 public and private facilities have been damaged or destroyed by the relentless downpours. The Korea Meteorological Administration issued severe weather warnings, highlighting that the central and southern regions are particularly vulnerable to concentrated, sudden heavy rainfall. In response, emergency response teams have been fully mobilized to preemptively evacuate residents from areas at high risk of landslides and flash floods. The central government is currently expediting recovery operations and thoroughly assessing the full scale of the agricultural and property losses to provide swift compensation. Vocabulary. Torrential. Adjective. 양도니로 들이붓는 듯한, 맹렬한. Torrential rain washed away several old wooden bridges in the village. Batter. Verb. 강타하다, 두드리다. The small coastal town was severely battered by a massive typhoon.
Substantial. Adjective. 상당한, 실질적인. The tech company suffered substantial financial losses last year. Relentless. Adjective. 끈질긴, 가차없는. The relentless summer heat wave made it almost impossible to work outside. Downpour. Noun. 폭우, 집중호우. We unexpectedly got caught in a sudden downpour on our way back home. Vulnerable. Adjective. 취약한. 연약한. Elderly people with asthma are particularly vulnerable to poor air quality. Preemptively. Adverb. 선제적으로. 예방적으로. The general decided to attack preemptively before the enemy could strike. Evacuate. Verb. 대피시키다. All residents were safely evacuated from the burning building in time. Flash flood. Noun. 돌발 홍수. 기습폭우. The flash flood quickly turned the quiet mountain stream into a raging river. Expedite. Verb. 신속히 처리하다. 진척시키다. We need to expedite the document shipping process to meet the strict deadline. 시사 용어 해설. monsoon, 몬순, 장마. 특정 계절의 방향을 바꾸어 부는 계절풍을 뜻하며 한국을 비롯한 아시아 지역에서는 보통 여름철에 길고 많은 비를 동반하는 우기, 장마를 의미합니다. 기후 변화로 인해 최근에는 집중호우의 성격이 더 강해지고 있습니다.
4-3. Supreme Court upholds prison terms for shaman and ex-Unification Church official. The Supreme Court has officially confirmed prison sentences for a shaman and a former Unification Church official involved in a high-profile bribery scandal linked to former First Lady Kim Keon-hee. Shaman Jaeon Song-bae, widely known as Gaeonjin, received a stringent 5-year prison term and a hefty fine of 180 million won for accepting bribes. Jaeon was found guilty of violating the Political Funds Act by illegally accepting 80 million won worth of goods in exchange for promising government favors to the church. Additionally, Yoon Young-ho, the former church official, was sentenced to 1.5 years in prison for funneling luxury gifts, including a diamond necklace and a Chanel bag, to the former First Lady through the shaman. This definitive Supreme Court ruling is expected to heavily influence the pending appeals of Kim and other implicated politicians. Vocabulary. Shaman. Noun. Mudang. 주술사. In some cultures, a shaman is believed to have healing powers. High profile. Adjective. 세간이 이목을 끄는. The high-profile murder case was broadcast live on national television. Bribery. Noun. 뇌물수수. The corrupt mayor was arrested and charged with bribery and fraud. Stringent. Adjective. 엄격한. 가혹한. The regulatory board imposed stringent rules on food safety. Hefty. Adjective. 무거운. 두둑한. 돈이 많은. He had to pay a hefty fine for driving significantly over the speed limit. Favor. Noun. 호의. 특혜. The businessman asked the politician for a special favor. Funnel. Verb. 자금 등을 집중시키다. 전달하다. Millions of dollars were illegally funneled into the secret campaign fund. Definitive. Adjective. 최종적인. 확정적인. The scientists lack definitive proof that the new vaccine works perfectly. Pending. Adjective. 미결인. 계류 중인. There are several pending lawsuits against the multinational corporation. Implicate. Verb. 범죄 등에 연루시키다. The new evidence implicated the CEO in the massive embezzlement scheme. 시사용어 해설. Political Funds Act. 정치자금법. 정치자금의 조달과 지출을 투명하게 하여 정치 부패를 막기 위해 제정된 법률입니다. 정해진 절차를 거치지 않은 검은 돈이 오가는 것을 엄격히 금지합니다. 5. The Korea Herald. 5-1. SK Hynix sets foreign IPO record with $26.5 billion NASDAQ offering. SK Hynix has successfully priced its NASDAQ offering of American Depository Receipts, ADRs, at $149 each, raising an unprecedented $26.5 billion in capital. This colossal financial transaction officially breaks the record for the largest U.S. initial public offering IPO by a foreign company, surpassing Alibaba's historic 2014 listing. Remarkably, the shares were priced at a 2.9% premium to the company's closing price in Seoul, which is highly unusual for such large offerings. This reflects explosive demand from global institutional investors, heavily driven by the booming artificial intelligence sector. SK Group's leadership, including Chairman Chae Tae-won, proudly celebrated the milestone by ringing the Nasdaq opening bell in New York. The massive capital injection is entirely earmarked for expanding advanced production capacity, such as the new Yongin semiconductor cluster. Vocabulary: unprecedented. Adjective: genlei 없는. The team enjoyed an unprecedented level of success during this season.
Colossal. Adjective. 거대한, 엄청난. The construction of the Hoover Dam was a colossal engineering feat. Transaction. Noun. 거래, 매매. The bank charges a small fee for every overseas financial transaction. Surpass. Verb. 뛰어넘다, 능가하다. The tech company's quarterly profits completely surpassed all market expectations. Premium. Noun. 할증료, 프리미엄. Health-conscious consumers are willing to pay a premium for organic products. Institutional. Adjective. 기관에, 제도에. Institutional investors, like pension funds, own the majority of the stock. Milestone. Noun. 중요한 단계, 이정표. Completing the project ahead of schedule was a major milestone for the team. Injection. Noun. 주입, 투입. The struggling retail business desperately needs a massive injection of cash. Earmark. Verb. 특정 목적을 위해 배정하다. The government funds were specifically earmarked for long-term educational reform. Capacity. Noun. 생산 능력, 용량. The automobile factory is currently operating at full capacity to meet the high demand. 시사 용어 해설. IPO. Initial Public Offering. 기업 공개. 비상장 기업이 외부 투자자들에게 처음으로 주식을 공개적으로 매도하여 주식시장에 상장하는 과정을 말합니다. 기업은 이를 통해 대규모 자금을 조달할 수 있습니다. ADR. American Depository Receipt. 미국 예탁증서. 미국 밖의 외국 기업이 미국 증권시장에서 주식을 달러로 직접 거래할 수 있도록 원본 주식은 본국에 보관하고 이를 바탕으로 미국에서 발행하는 대체 증권입니다.
5.2. North Korea expands spy agency for operations against potential enemies. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has directed his principal military intelligence agency to significantly expand its operational scope and missions against potential enemies. Geopolitical analysts interpret this semantic shift as a clear indication that Pyongyang is aggressively broadening its intelligence and covert operations beyond its traditional focus on South Korea. The newly reorganized and empowered General Reconnaissance and Intelligence Bureau is now expected to target the United States, Japan, and potentially NATO member states. This structural reorganization directly reflects a strategic goal to integrate modern technological assets, such as military reconnaissance satellites, unmanned aircraft, and sophisticated cyber warfare capabilities, with analog espionage methods. The bold move further solidifies North Korea's highly aggressive military posture amid tightening trilateral security cooperation among Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. Vocabulary. Principal. Adjective. 주요한, 주된. The principal reason for his early resignation was his deteriorating health. Scope. Noun. 범위, 영역. The scope of the police investigation has been significantly widened. Semantic. Adjective. 의미의, 의미론적인. The heated debate over the new policy is largely just a semantic issue. Covert. Adjective. 은밀한, 비밀의. The spy agency successfully conducted a covert operation deep in enemy territory. Reorganize. Verb. 재편성하다, 개편하다. The struggling company decided to thoroughly reorganize its management structure. Integrate. Verb. 통합하다. We desperately need to integrate the new software with our existing computer system. Reconnaissance. Noun. 정찰. The unmanned drone was sent on a dangerous reconnaissance mission over the border. Sophisticated. Adjective. 정교한, 고도화된. The clever thieves used a highly sophisticated electronic alarm bypass system. Espionage. Noun. 간첩행위, spy 활동. He was arrested at the airport and formally charged with corporate espionage. Solidify. Verb. 확고히 하다,
굳히다. The newly signed treaty will certainly help solidify the military alliance between the two nations. 시사유어 해설. Covert operation, 비밀 작전. 정부나 군대, 정보기관이 자신들의 개입 사실을 숨긴 채 은밀하게 수행하는 군사적, 정치적 공작을 의미합니다. 암살, 사보타주, 흑색 선전 등이 포함됩니다. General Reconnaissance Bureau, 정찰총국. 북한 인민무력성 산하의 정보기관으로 대남 및 해외 공작, 사이버 해킹, 예를 들어 라자룩스 그룹 운영, 유인 암살 등을 총괄하는 북한 최고위 간첩 부대입니다.
5.3. Korea to open FX market around the clock from July. The South Korean government has officially implemented a sweeping overhaul of its foreign exchange regime, opening the onshore FX market around the clock starting this July. This bold policy shift extends the trading hours from the previous system, which effectively shuttered at 2, entirely eliminating the cumbersome time zone gaps for international traders. By allowing 24-hour access, global investors can now seamlessly trade the Korean won at real-time exchange rates, anytime and anywhere. A finance ministry official explained that outside traditional market hours, institutions will no longer rely on conservative proxy rates, enabling them to offer the most competitive pricing. Ultimately, this deregulation aims to accelerate the won's internationalization and bolster South Korea's aggressive push to be upgraded to MSCI developed market status. Vocabulary. Implement. Verb. 시행하다, 이행하다. The company implemented a new software system to improve efficiency. Sweeping. Adjective. 광범위한, 전면적인. The newly elected president promised sweeping changes to the healthcare system. Overhaul. Noun, verb. 대대적인 점검, 개편. The aging public transportation system requires a major structural overhaul. Shutter. Verb. 문을 닫다, 폐쇄하다. The factory was forced to shutter its operations due to bankruptcy. Cumbersome. Adjective. 크고 무거운, 다루기 힘든. The old bureaucratic process was incredibly cumbersome and slow. Seamlessly. Adverb. 매끄럽게, 원활하게. The new application integrates seamlessly with our existing databases. Conservative. Adjective. 보수적인. The financial advisor suggested a very conservative investment strategy for retirement. Proxy. Noun. 대리, 대용물. He used his older brother as a proxy to vote in the local election. Deregulation. Noun. 규제 완화. The deregulation of the airline industry led to much cheaper ticket prices. Bolster. Verb. 강화하다, 지지하다. The government introduced new tax policies to bolster the failing economy. 시사유머 해설. Onshore FX market. 영내 외환시장. 국가 내부의 물리적, 법적으로 위치한 외환시장을 뜻합니다. 반대로 국가의 규제를 피하기 위해 외국, 예를 들면 런던, 뉴욕에서 원화를 거래하는 시장을 역외, offshore, 외환시장이라고. MSCI 선진국 지수, MSCI Developed Markets Index, 모건 스탠리 캐피털 인터내셔널, MSCI가 발표하는 세계 주가 지수로 이 지수에 편입되면 글로벌 대형 펀드들의 막대한 패시브 자금, 기계적으로 투자되는 돈, 이 국내 증시로 안정적으로 유입되는 효과가 있습니다. 6. CGTN. 6-1. China achieves reusable rocket breakthrough with Long March 10B carrier rocket. China has reached a major milestone in aerospace engineering by successfully recovering the first stage of the Long March 10B carrier rocket following its maiden flight. Uniquely, the Chinese engineering team utilized an innovative sea-based cable net recovery system. This marks the world's first successful rocket capture using this external infrastructure method, shifting much of the recovery weight away from the rocket itself compared to deployable landing legs used by competitors like SpaceX. The powerful rocket lifted off from the Hainan International Commercial Aerospace Launch Center and accurately delivered its payload into low Earth orbit. With a reusable payload capacity of 16 tons, the Long March 10B is strategically designed to drastically reduce launch costs and significantly accelerate the deployment of massive commercial satellite constellations. Vocabulary. Milestone. Noun. 이정표, 획기적 사건.
The invention of the internet was a major milestone in human history. Aerospace. Noun. 항공우주산업. The senior engineer has worked in the aerospace industry for decades. Maiden. Adjective. 최초의, 처녀의. The famous Titanic sadly sank on its maiden voyage across the Atlantic. Innovative. Adjective. 혁신적인. The tech startup introduced an innovative new approach to recycling plastic. Infrastructure. Noun. 인프라, 기반시설. The city desperately needs to upgrade its aging public infrastructure. Deployable. Adjective. 전개 가능한, 펼칠 수 있는. The spacecraft uses deployable solar panels to generate enough power. Payload. Noun. 탑재체, 유효하중. The rocket successfully carried a heavy payload into the Earth's orbit. Drastically. Adverb. 극적으로, 획기적으로. The strict new policy drastically reduced the crime rate in the city. Accelerate. Verb. 가속하다. The application of AI will accelerate the pace of scientific discovery. Constellation. Noun. 별자리, 인공위성의 군집. The telecom company plans to launch a massive constellation of communication satellites. 시사용어 해설. Reusable rocket, 재사용 로켓. 한 번 발사 후 우주에 버려지거나 바다에 추락해 소멸하던 기존 로켓과 달리 1단 추진체 등을 온전히 지구로 귀환시켜 정비 후 다시 우주 발사에 사용하는 로켓입니다. 우주로 가는 택시비, 발사 비용을 10분의 1 수준으로 줄일 수 있는 핵심 기술입니다.
6.2. NATO summit ends amid widening US-Europe rift and internal divisions. The recent NATO summit in Ankara officially concluded, glaringly exposing significant fractures and mutual distrust between the United States and its European allies. Throughout the tense meetings, US President Donald Trump vehemently criticized European nations for severely lagging behind in defense spending, even bizarrely reiterating his demand for US control over Greenland. Host nation Turkey also complicated matters by warning the EU against building autonomous defense infrastructures that exclude non-EU NATO members. Although the alliance barely managed to pass a critical €70 billion military aid package for Ukraine, the consensus was heavily strained. Several member states, including Bulgaria, publicly admitted they lack the surplus military resources to sustain such financial commitments, leaving the alliance's facade of unity deeply cracked. Vocabulary. Fracture. Noun, verb. 균열, 골절. 갈라지다. The intense debate revealed deep fractures within the political party. Vehemently. Adverb. 맹렬히, 격렬하게. The senator vehemently denied the false allegations of corruption. Lag behind. Phrasal verb. 비처지다. Our local tech industry is beginning to lag behind international competitors. Reiterate. Verb. 반복하여 말하다. The manager reiterated the importance of meeting the strict deadline. Autonomous. Adjective. 자율적인, 자치해. The region has been fighting for an autonomous government for decades. Infrastructure. Noun. Infra, 기반시설. The growing city urgently needs to upgrade its aging public infrastructure. Strain. Verb. Noun. 부담을 주다, 긴장시키다. 압박. The unexpected medical expenses severely strained the family's monthly budget. Surplus. Noun. Adjective. 잉여, 흑자, 남는. The country generously donated its surplus grain to neighboring nations in need. Commitment. Noun. 헌신, 약속. 돈, 시간에, 투입. Making a daily commitment to exercise will drastically improve your health. Facade. Noun. 표면, 허울, 건물의 정면. Behind his cheerful facade, he was actually struggling with deep depression. 시사용어 해설. NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, 북대서양 조약기구. 제2차 세계대전 이후 구소련에 대항하기 위해 미국, 캐나다, 그리고 유럽 국가들이 결성한 집단안보 체제입니다. 회원국 중 한 나라가 공격받으면 전체에 대한 공격으로 간주하여 공동 방위하는 것을 핵심으로 합니다.
GDP의 2%를 국방비로 지출하라는 가이드라인을 두고 회원국 간 갈등이 빈번합니다.
Number 6. 3. Trump threatens additional strikes against Iran. On Wednesday night, U.S. President Donald Trump issued a stern warning to Iran, explicitly stating that the United States would likely engage in additional forceful military strikes in retaliation for previous attacks. Speaking to reporters at the NATO summit in Turkey, Trump bluntly declared that a memorandum of understanding, which served as an initial ceasefire deal between Washington and Tehran, was effectively over. He noted, "I'll give a little warning. We're going to hit them hard tonight," signaling an uncompromising stance. This severe flare-up in hostilities has immediately pushed global oil prices up sharply. Furthermore, the renewed violence has heightened safety concerns around the Strait of Hormuz, forcing multiple gas and oil tankers to turn back rather than transit the vital supply route. The prospect of a full-fledged war casts a dark shadow over the Middle East. Vocabulary: stern, adjective, 엄중한, 단호한. The principal gave the students a stern warning about bullying. Retaliation, noun, 보복, 안갚음. The missile launch was in direct retaliation for the earlier terrorist attack. Bluntly, adverb, 직설적으로, 퉁명스럽게. She bluntly told him that his business idea would never work. Effectively, adverb, 사실상, 효과적으로. With the CEO's resignation, the project is effectively cancelled. Uncompromising, adjective, 타협하지 않는, 강경한. The union maintained an uncompromising stance during the wage negotiations. Flare-up, noun, 폭력, 분쟁 등의 갑작스러운 발생. A sudden flare-up of violence forced the borders to close immediately. Transit, verb/noun, 통과하다, 수송하다, 통과. The cargo ship is scheduled to transit the Panama Canal tomorrow. Full-fledged, adjective, 완전한, 전면적인. What started as a minor disagreement turned into a full-fledged legal battle. Cast a shadow, idiom, 그림자를 들이우다, 우울하게 하다. The sudden economic downturn cast a dark shadow over the holiday season. Prospect, noun, 전망, 가망. The grim prospect of another world war terrifies international observers. 시사용어 해설, Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, 양해각서. 정식 조약이나 계약을 체결하기 전에 국가나 기업 간에 서로 합의한 내용을 기록해두는 문서입니다. 법적 구속력은 약하지만 공식적인 약속의 첫 단추로 여겨집니다.
7. NHK World Japan. 7.1. Japan's finance minister urges pension funds to boost domestic investment. Japanese Finance Minister Satsuki Katayama has publicly encouraged the nation's massive pension funds, including the Government Pension Investment Fund, GPIF, to significantly increase their investments in domestic financial assets. This strategic call is widely interpreted by market analysts as a form of stealth intervention designed to support the yen, which recently plummeted to near 4-decade lows against the dollar. The GPIF, managing approximately $1.8 trillion in assets, possesses the immense market weight necessary to influence broad global capital flows. Following Katayama's remarks, the financial markets reacted immediately and positively. The yen strengthened noticeably, Japanese government bond yields dropped, and the Nikkei stock average surged by 1.4%. Experts note that structurally shifting institutional capital homeward provides a more durable method to alleviate pressure on Japan's currency compared to direct market interventions. Vocabulary: urge, verb, 촉구하다, 강력히 권고하다. The United Nations urged all nations to reduce their carbon emissions immediately. Domestic, adjective, 국내의, 가정의. The airline operates both international and domestic flights across the country. Intervention, noun, 개입, 간섭. Direct central bank intervention is sometimes necessary to stabilize a falling currency. Plummet, verb, 곤두박질치다, 급락하다. Tech stock prices plummeted heavily after the disappointing quarterly earnings report. Immense. Adjective. 엄청난, 어마어마한. The new infrastructure project will cost an immense amount of taxpayer money. Noticeably. Adverb. 눈에 띄게, 뚜렷하게. The weather has become noticeably colder this week as winter approaches. Yield. Noun, verb. 수익률, 산출하다, 양보하다. Conservative investors are always looking for government bonds with a high, stable yield. Institutional. Adjective. 기관의, 제도의. The recent market crash was primarily triggered by sudden institutional selling. Durable. Adjective. 내구성이 있는, 오래가는. The company manufactures durable goods like washing machines and refrigerators. Alleviate. Verb. 완화하다, 덜다. The strong painkiller helped to quickly alleviate her severe migraine headache medication. 시사 용어 해설. GPIF. 거버먼트 펜션 인베스트먼트 펀드. 일본 정부 연금 투자기금. 일본 국민의 연금을 운용하는 세계 최대 규모의 연기금입니다. 이 거대한 기금이 해외 주식을 살지, 일본 주식을 살지에 따라 전 세계 금융시장의 자금 흐름이 크게 출렁일 수 있습니다. 본드 일드, 채권 금리 수익률. 채권에 투자했을 때 얻을 수 있는 수익의 비율입니다. 국채에 돈이 몰려 채권 가격이 올라가면 반대로 금리, 수익률은 떨어지는 반비례 관계를 가집니다.
7-2. North Korean Premier Park to visit China for treaty anniversary. North Korean Premier Park Tae-sung has embarked on a 3-day official visit to Beijing to commemorate the 65th anniversary of the signing of the Sino-North Korean Mutual Aid and Cooperation Friendship Treaty. Chinese state broadcaster CCTV aired prominent footage of President Xi Jinping meeting warmly with the North Korean premier shortly after his arrival. This diplomatic trip directly follows previous high-level agreements between Xi and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to bolster strategic coordination and cultural exchanges. Notably, this marks the first time in 7 years that Pyongyang has dispatched a high-level government delegation to China specifically to celebrate this treaty anniversary. Observers emphasize that the visit signals a robust reaffirmation of the historical military and economic alliance between the two socialist nations. Vocabulary. Premier. Noun. 수상. 국무총리. The premier delivered an important speech on national television last night. Embark. Verb. 착수하다. 승선하다. After graduating, she is about to embark on a completely new career in politics.
Commemorate. Verb. 기념하다. A large bronze statue was built to commemorate the fallen soldiers of the war. Prominent. Adjective. 두드러진, 저명한. He played a very prominent role in negotiating the complex peace agreement. Bolster. Verb. 강화하다, 지지하다. The government introduced new economic policies to bolster the failing housing market. Coordination. Noun. 공조, 조정. The massive infrastructure project requires close coordination between different city departments. Dispatch. Verb. 파견하다, 발송하다. Emergency rescue teams were dispatched to the earthquake zone immediately. Specifically. Adverb. 특별히, 구체적으로. These advanced running shoes are designed specifically for professional marathon runners. Reaffirmation. Noun. 재확인. The diplomatic meeting ended with a strong reaffirmation of their commitment to peace. Alliance. Noun. 동맹, 연합. The two neighboring countries formed a mutual military alliance during the Cold War. 시사용어 해설. Sino. 중국의. Sino는 중국의라는 뜻을 가진 라틴어 기원의 접두사입니다. 외교 기사에서 Sino-North Korean는 중국과 북한의 조중, Sino-American는 미국과 중국의 미중라는 뜻으로 매우 자주 쓰이는 필수 어휘입니다. 8. AlJazeera.com. 8-1. Cuba suffers second island-wide blackout in a week amid Trump fuel blockade. Cuba has experienced its second devastating nationwide electrical blackout in less than a week, plunging the entire Caribbean island back into utter darkness. The state-owned utility company announced the sudden outage but provided no detailed technical explanation for the severe grid failure. However, geopolitical analysts heavily attribute the collapsing energy infrastructure to a critical lack of fuel, directly exacerbated by a de facto oil blockade imposed by the U.S. under President Donald Trump. This intense external pressure has severely strained Cuba's aging power plants, which rely overwhelmingly on imported crude oil to generate electricity. The recurring blackouts have fundamentally disrupted daily life and essential medical services, dangerously deepening the economic and humanitarian crisis for the Cuban population. Vocabulary: devastating, adjective, 파괴적인, 엄청난 손상을 가하는. The devastating hurricane completely destroyed the coastal town. Blackout, noun, 정전, 보도 통제. The severe storm caused a massive blackout that lasted for 3 days. Plunge, verb, 어떤 상태를 빠뜨리다, 급락하다. The sudden power failure plunged the entire movie theater into darkness. Utility, noun, utility, 공익사업, 수도, 전기 등. Residents have unfortunately seen a sharp increase in their monthly utility bills. Outage, noun, 정전, 보도 통제. The hospital heavily relies on backup generators during a power outage. Attribute, verb, 뭐뭐의 탓으로 돌리다. The scientist attributed the exceptionally warm winter to global climate change. Exacerbate, verb, 악화시키다. His harsh, thoughtless words only exacerbated the already tense situation. De facto, adjective/adverb, 사실상의, 실질적인. English has become the de facto international language of global business. Blockade, noun, 봉쇄, 차단. The military navy set up a blockade to stop illegal weapons from entering the port. Strain, verb, 무리를 주다, 혹사하다. Reading small text in the dark can severely strain your eyes over time. 시사용어 해설. De facto, 사실상의. 법이나 조약으로 공식화되지는 않았지만 현실적으로 강력한 효력을 발휘하거나 인정되는 상태를 뜻하는 라틴어 유래의 법률 용어입니다. 반대말은 법률상 명시된 것을 뜻하는 de jure입니다. Blockade, 봉쇄. 적대적인 국가의 경제나 군사력을 약화시키기 위해 해상이나 육상의 통로를 군사력으로 차단하여 물자의 수출입을 막는 행위를 말합니다.
8.2. U.S. demands Iran publicly state Strait of Hormuz open for all international commercial shipping. The United States is actively pressing Iran to issue a formal public declaration guaranteeing that the strategic Strait of Hormuz remains safely open for all international commercial shipping. U.S. officials firmly insist that Iran must definitively cease its attacks on maritime vessels before any diplomatic progress can be successfully negotiated. In stark contrast, Tehran's diplomats to the UN asserted that operations and control within the strait rest exclusively with Iran, completely rejecting any external interference. The renewed military hostilities in the region have dramatically plunged shipping traffic, dealing a very heavy blow to global energy markets. Amidst the rapidly collapsing ceasefire, Qatari negotiators are currently on the ground in Tehran, attempting to salvage the diplomatic track and peacefully de-escalate tensions. Vocabulary: press, verb, 압박하다, 강요하다. The investigation committee pressed the CEO for a clear, honest explanation. Formal, adjective, 공식적인, 격식을 차린. The two warring countries finally signed a formal peace treaty today. Guarantee, verb/noun, 보장하다, 보증. The national constitution guarantees basic freedom of speech to all citizens. Definitively, adverb, 명확하게, 확고하게. We need to definitively resolve this issue before moving to the next project. Cease, verb, 중단하다, 그치다. The old factory ceased production entirely due to a lack of raw materials. Maritime, adjective, 바다에, 해양에. The coastal country has a long, proud, and rich maritime history. Exclusively. Adverb. 독점적으로. 오로지. This VIP lounge is strictly and exclusively for first-class passengers only. Interference. Noun. 간섭, 방해. We will absolutely not tolerate any foreign interference in our democratic elections. Hostility. Noun. 적대감, 교전. The long-standing hostility between the two rival families finally ended. De-escalate. Verb. 상황, 긴장을 완화하다. The experienced police officer tried calmly to de-escalate the violent confrontation. 잠깐 시사용어 해설. Strait. 해협. 육지 사이에 끼어 있어 두 개의 큰 바다를 연결하는 좁은 바닷길을 의미합니다. 호르무즈 해협, 중동이나 말라카 해협, 동남아처럼 해상 무역과 원유 수송의 주요 통로가 되는 곳은 국제 정치에서 전략적으로 매우 중요합니다.
9. CBC Canada. 9.1. Gordie Howe International Bridge to open July 27th, Ottawa confirms. The Canadian federal government has officially confirmed that the highly anticipated Gordie Howe International Bridge will finally open to traffic on July 27th. Connecting Windsor, Ontario with Detroit, Michigan, this monumental 2.4-kilometer cable-stayed bridge aims to significantly alleviate massive congestion at existing border crossings like the Ambassador Bridge. The grand opening had been temporarily stalled due to diplomatic friction, notably including U.S. President Trump's demands for the United States to receive a 50% ownership stake, despite Canada exclusively funding the entire $6.4 billion Canadian construction cost. Fortunately, top officials from Canada and the U.S. successfully resolved the outstanding issues regarding toll governance and regional revenue sharing. This new state-of-the-art infrastructure is expected to serve as a vital economic artery, vastly streamlining North America's busiest commercial trade corridor. Vocabulary. Confirm. Verb. 확인하다, 확정하다. The hotel confirmed our room reservation for next weekend via email. Monumental. Adjective. 기념비적인, 엄청난. The successful moon landing was a truly monumental achievement for humanity. Alleviate. Verb. 완화하다. The new highway bypass was built to alleviate severe traffic congestion in the city. Congestion. Noun. 혼잡, 체증. The traffic congestion gets much worse and frustrating during the holiday season. Stall. Verb. 지연시키다, 멈추다. The critical peace negotiations were stalled due to unexpected new demands. Friction. Noun. 마찰, 갈등. There has always been some noticeable friction between the sales and marketing departments. Stake. Noun. 지분, 이해관계. The wealthy investor bought a 20% ownership stake in the promising tech startup. Outstanding. Adjective. 미해결해, 뛰어난. You need to pay the outstanding balance on your credit card immediately. Artery. Noun. 동맥, 교통 등의 주요 간선도로. The interstate highway is a main economic artery for transporting goods across the state. Streamline. Verb. 능률화하다, 간소화하다. The company streamlined its outdated production process to save both time and money. 시사용어 해설. Toll governance, 통행 관리 체계. 다리나 고속도로 등 막대한 예산이 들어간 유류 인프라를 이용할 때 부과되는 요금, 톨을 어떻게 결정하고 어떻게 징수하며 발생한 수익을 양국 또는 기업이 어떻게 배분할지를 법적으로 규정하는 정책과 시스템을 뜻합니다. 9-2. Canadian town becomes first to sign Universal Declaration of the Rights of Trees. A small municipality in Canada, Terrasse-Vaudreuil, has made global environmental history by becoming the very first town to officially sign the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Trees. This pioneering legal and ethical framework formally recognizes the inherent right of trees to exist, thrive, and be protected from arbitrary human destruction. The local town council stated that strictly enforcing these rights is critical to preserving its distinct sylvan character and enhancing local biodiversity. By legally committing to safeguard existing greenery, the community aggressively aims to combat urban heat islands and significantly improve air quality for its residents. Environmentalists worldwide praise this historical milestone as a progressive leap forward in sustainable urban planning and ecological conservation. Vocabulary. Municipality. Noun.
지방자치단체, 시당국. The local municipality is entirely responsible for collecting residential waste. Pioneering, adjective, 선구적인, 개척적인. She did absolutely pioneering work in the complex field of artificial intelligence. Framework, noun, 뼈대, 체제, 틀. The committee established a strong legal framework to better protect consumers. Inherent, adjective, 내재하는, 본질적인. Every human being on Earth has an inherent right to basic freedom and dignity. Thrive, verb, 번창하다, 잘 자라다. These tropical plants thrive beautifully in warm, highly humid climates. Arbitrary, adjective, 임의적인, 독단적인. The boss made an arbitrary decision without consulting the rest of the team. Enforce, verb, 집행하다, 강요하다. The highway police are very strict about enforcing the local speed limits. Biodiversity, noun, 생물 다양성. The rapid destruction of the rainforest severely threatens global biodiversity. Combat, verb, 싸우다, 방제하다. Regular exercise is proven to be one of the best ways to combat daily stress. Conservation, noun, 보존, 보호. Wildlife conservation is absolutely essential to prevent tragic species extinction.
10. DD India. 10-1. PM Modi holds bilateral talks with New Zealand PM Christopher Luxon. Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a truly historic visit to Auckland, marking the very first time an Indian premier has visited New Zealand in 4 decades. Upon his arrival, Modi was accorded a ceremonial guard of honor and warmly received by his counterpart, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon. The ensuing bilateral talks comprehensively reviewed the rapidly expanding India-New Zealand partnership, placing a strong emphasis on boosting trade, commerce, and defense collaboration. The meeting directly builds upon the momentum of a recent free trade agreement signed earlier in the year. Furthermore, Modi's enthusiastic interactions with the vibrant Indian diaspora highlighted the deep-rooted cultural and people-to-people connections uniting the two nations. Vocabulary. Historic. Adjective. 역사적인, 역사적으로 중요한. The signing of the unprecedented peace treaty was a historic moment. Premier. Noun. 총리, 수상. The premier addressed the entire nation regarding the controversial new tax policy. Accord. Verb. 부여하다, 주다. He was accorded the highest military honors for his extreme bravery in battle. Ensuing. Adjective. 뒤따르는, 이어지는. In the ensuing days after the storm, the situation slowly returned to normal. Comprehensively. Adverb. 종합적으로, 완전히. The committee's report comprehensively covered all complex aspects of the issue. Emphasis. Noun. 강조, 주안점. The modern school places a strong emphasis on daily physical education. Collaboration. Noun. 협력, 합작. The new research project was a highly successful collaboration between 2 universities. Momentum. Noun. 추진력, 여세. The political campaign gained massive momentum as election day approached. Diaspora. Noun. Diaspora, 해외 이주민 집단. The Indian diaspora in the US has contributed significantly to the tech economy. Deep-rooted. Adjective. 뿌리 깊은. Systemic racism remains a deep-rooted and painful problem in many modern societies. 시사용어 해설. Free Trade Agreement, FTA, 자유무역 협정. 2개 이상의 국가가 서로의 물품이나 서비스에 부과하던 관세, 세금 및 무역 장벽을 철폐하여 마치 한 나라 안에서 거래하듯 무역을 자유롭게 하자는 국가 간의 약속입니다. Diaspora. 디아스포라, 본래 팔레스타인을 떠나 세계 각지에 흩어져 살게 된 유대인을 일컫는 말이었으나 현재는 고국을 떠나 바른 나라에 정착해 살면서도 고유의 문화와 정체성을 유지하는 해외 이주민 집단이라는 고급 시사 용어로 널리 쓰입니다. 10-2. India and Japan signed first defense co-development project. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Japan's newly elected Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi elevated their special strategic and global partnership during the 16th annual summit held in New Delhi. A major highlight of the diplomatic visit was the signing of the first-ever India-Japan Defense Co-Development Agreement, specifically focusing on a cutting-edge naval radio antenna project. Additionally, the two leaders adopted a progressive joint statement on artificial intelligence and mapped out strategies for robust economic security and supply chain resilience. Marking her very first visit to India as Japan's first female prime minister, Takaichi reaffirmed a staggering commitment to attract 10 trillion yen in Japanese investment to India over the next decade. This strong alignment powerfully strengthens their shared vision for a free, open, and secure Indo-Pacific under the Quad framework. Vocabulary. Elevate. Verb. 승격시키다. 높이다. The highly successful mission elevated his status within the entire organization. Highlight. Noun. 가장 흥미로운 부분. Highlight. The spectacular fireworks display was definitely the highlight of the festival. Co-development. Noun. 공동개발. The two tech giants announced a lucrative co-development project for a new microchip. Cutting edge. Adjective. 최첨단의. The new university laboratory is fully equipped with cutting-edge medical technology. Resilience. Noun. 회복력. 탄성. Psychological resilience helps people cope effectively with severe emotional trauma. Reaffirm. Verb. 재확인하다. The president strongly reaffirmed his campaign commitment to lowering corporate taxes. Staggering. Adjective. 충격적인. 엄청난. The Category 5 hurricane caused a staggering amount of damage to the East Coast. Decade. Noun. 10년. Mobile technology has advanced significantly over the past single decade. Alignment. Noun. 정열. 협력. 동맹. The new environmental policies are in direct alignment with the company's core values. Framework. Noun. 체제. The two allied countries are negotiating a new framework for bilateral free trade. 시사용어 해설. Quad. Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. Quad. 미국, 인도, 일본, 호주 4개국이 참여하는 비공식 안보회의체입니다. 주로 인도-태평양 지역에서 중국의 군사적, 경제적 팽창과 영향력을 견제하고 자유롭고 열린 해상 통행을 보장하기 위한 목적으로 결성된 강력한 다자간 안보연합입니다.